Would you like to know how to stop catastrophizing, stop making yourself depressed and anxious? Now, I'm not trying to blame depression and anxiety completely on you because it has an origin story, which we will talk about in this video if you watch to the end. But I will say that catastrophizing definitely can contribute to your feelings of depression and anxiety. So let's talk about that. Hello, my name is Jesse. Welcome to the channel Open Source Owners, where we talk about what if humans had an owner's manual. Okay, so what is catastrophizing? Let's go through these fairly quickly. It is a mental process of making a current event into a catastrophe. Okay, so a mental process, something going on with our thinking and our interpretation of events that turns, regular events or maybe small stressors into catastrophes. It is a mental forecasting into the future, or as the originator of that term, catastrophizing, Albert Ellis, who was one of the sort of progenitors of cognitive therapy, which eventually became cognitive behavioral therapy. As he states, catastrophizing is, quote, an irrationally negative forecast of future events. Put more colloquially, catastrophizing is a glass half empty style of thinking that is really fundamentally pessimistic in that it affirms that the past predicts the future. Now, I'm not judging pessimism versus optimism here. I'm saying that it's pessimistic in the sense that it believes what patterns were set up in the past will predict how the future will turn out for you individually. And that's just simply not true. That's pessimistic. You could be more neutral about it, or you could be optimistic about the future. But pessimism is that negative things happened to me in the past, therefore they will continue to happen to me in the future, and there's no real hope. This style of thinking is protective insofar as it prevents novel behaviors, so it prevents individuals from seeking new things, new experiences, and it limits exposure to disconfirming social situations. So social situations where you're hearing people say, hey, it's not going to be that bad, or like, I won't let you down, or yes, these bad things happen to you, but they may not happen in the future. Those type of disconfirming patterns will be avoided when we catastrophize because it tends to keep us away from situations that may challenge our worldview or our interpretation of events. So I'd like to say that catastrophizing can actually be protective, and that's how I'd like to actually think about it. Rather than something's wrong with you, your brain is broken, you're so messed up. There's too much shame and guilt in the mental health game, in my opinion. When we don't understand the origin of where something like catastrophizing can come from, or depression or anxiety, then yeah, we can feel shame about it. Oh, it's my fault. There must be something wrong with me. Why am I always like this? But when we begin to trace back the thread of catastrophizing or anxious thinking or worry-based thinking, it actually makes a heck of a lot of sense. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Okay, but first, let's talk about categorization in the 4 domains. Now, I use these 4 domains as my general framework for understanding what I call sustainable mental health. So let's think about them through the view of catastrophizing. Biological. Pain, so physical pain, sort of equals in your thought process, I will always be in pain, or maybe even it will get much worse. This pain's never going away, it's going to get much worse. A certain illness or a certain diagnosis might equal in the catastrophizing mind, I'm going to die from this, right? This thing will kill me. Well, no, you just have diabetes type 2. You're not going to die from that immediately. And you have the ability to change your relationship to the pain or to the illness, right? Bad sleep might be a catastrophe for somebody. Oh, this is going to ruin my week. This will always happen to me. I can never get good sleep. Bodily sensations might cause catastrophic thinking. That's in the biological domain. Okay, in the spiritual domain, loss of meaning or purpose might equal in somebody's thought processes, what's the point of living? This is just going to get worse. I'm never going to find meaning again or purpose again, etc. A tragedy might lead one to think, oh, God has forsaken me, or I must give up on my spiritual belief because it is not sort of supporting me through this difficult time. I no longer believe in a higher power might be sort of like the result of a type of catastrophic thinking. And the fact of death, the fact that we all will die at some point, or maybe you lost somebody and that death itself shakes into one's brain and consciousness the concept and the thought of what's the point of living. These are forms of catastrophic thinking, and these are just examples. You may not have these exactly, but you can let me know in the comments the type of catastrophic thoughts that you have. In the social realm, like a breakup could equal in someone's brain, I'll never find love again. Loneliness, the general feeling of loneliness or the general experience of loneliness might make the catastrophic thinker think something like, I am unlovable at a fundamental level. No one can ever love me. Loss of interest in hobbies might equal nothing makes me happy anymore. These are examples. It might be different for you. Let me know in the comments below. In the psychological domain, a negative thought of any type might lead someone to think, well, I knew that this would be this way. That negative thought confirms their pre-existing pessimistic or catastrophic worldview or understanding. Uncomfortable emotions, whatever those may be, maybe it's anger, maybe it's sadness, might equal in the catastrophic mind, I cannot handle this, it'll never get better, etc. Much of the time in the mental health world and in CBT and stuff like that, which I love CBT, I love DBT, but they don't often go deep enough, in my opinion, to get to the root. Where does catastrophizing even come from? They just simply want you to manage it as if it's something wrong with your broken brain. And yes, it is a pattern that may or may not be helpful to you, but it's very useful to understand the origin from which catastrophic thinking comes from, because it comes from a source. And if we can actually begin to address the root cause, then the catastrophic thinking is not such an issue as it is sort of a reminder and sort of a sign that, like, oh yeah, we got to get to that root sort of wound or that root cause that created this catastrophic worldview or mindset in the first place. So let's get into that now. Catastrophizing has an origin story. So attachment wounds are one of the primary origins of most mental health struggles. Not all, not always, but in many, many cases, in a large preponderance of mental health struggles, attachment wounds, which form between 6 months and 2 years of age, are often the cause or the original root origin of the then later mental health struggles that we have. For instance, the disorganized attachment style sort of equaled for you, if you lived with that in that 6 months to 2 years of age, that life really was a series of catastrophes for you as a child. Now, if you'd like to know more about attachment styles, go ahead and click this video. I'll link to that because there's a whole lot more to talk about with attachment styles. We're just giving some examples here. So again, with disorganized attachment, like your parents may have had alcohol issues, violent issues, they may have been undiagnosed schizophrenia or mental illness in the family. And for the child perceiving that, it was very, very scary. Therefore, it was literally catastrophic all the time. The child did not know how to settle, how to feel as if life was predictable or acceptable and safe. The anxious attachment style. So you have an anxious attachment style, which again was formed 6 months to 2 years. You did not choose this. This was something that you were sort of forced into by being raised by who you were raised by growing up where you grew up, etc. For you, learning from your anxious primary caregiver that the world was anxious and uncertain, scary, fearful, etc. So you learned at a very young age that it literally was a scary place, and therefore catastrophizing would be a natural outcropping of how your brain perceives reality from that scenario. And the dismissing attachment style, life was about isolation and self-reliance and really not trusting the other as safe and secure. So not being able to rely on and be soothed by the other. So you notice I used the 3 insecure forms of attachment: disorganized, dismissive, and anxious, as a way to frame where catastrophic thinking comes from. And I find this to be very useful because, again, it gets to the root issue instead of just saying, oh, something's wrong with me. There's just another thing I have to do in my life, which is to manage my anxious thinking or to manage my worry thinking or manage my anxiety. Well, true, we do have to manage those things, but it's better to manage it at a root level, get to it, get to the origin, repair the damage at that level, and then get on with living our best lives, hopefully free from catastrophic thinking. So how do we stop this style of mental activity? Catastrophic thinking, worry-based thinking, etc. Obviously, there's no quick solution to this. There's no easy, like, oh my gosh, it's gone like in 5 days or something like that. It's a process, right? But the way I view it anyway is we want to repair our attachment style and what is sometimes called in this sort of mental health, sort of self-care world, reparenting. And so what are we trying to reparent? Well, ultimately, we're trying to reparent what we didn't get from our early attachment styles, and we want to model secure attachment styles as best as we can. So being able to be consistent, soothing, excited about novel situations, excited about allowing ourselves to try new things and fail, because we know that through small failures and small novel scenarios, we actually grow into more of our true self. We learn mastery. We learn to find our hobbies and our interest in life. But also reparenting our attachment style vis-a-vis the other, understanding how we can find people that we can actually truly rely on and trust, and how we can become that person for our partners, our friends, our family. As part of this work to try to ultimately resolve catastrophizing, we want to learn to master our own thoughts and emotions. In my opinion, that's sort of an imperative for all of us, which is, as we're on this journey of life, we're trying to learn to master our own thinking patterns so that they serve us and our communities and our families, and also our own emotional patterning. And that's something that we all have to work on. And ultimately, how are we going to do this? We're going to upgrade ourself and our patterns and our habits in all four of these areas. So in the biological world, we would do things like upgrading our quality of sleep, make sure that we're sleeping well, upgrading our quality of water, our food, and our relationship to what is the best type of diet for us, and our movement, whether we're sedentary or whether we're engaging in exercise or movement patterns. If we can begin to upgrade any of those things, and we do that cyclically over time, we will actually begin to notice our mental capacities begin to work better, especially when we do it paired with these other three domains. The spiritual upgrade would be learning about meaning, finding meaning again or purpose again if you've lost it. That's one of the unique features of being a human, is we can basically create meaning and purpose when we lose it or when it's not sort of readily apparent. And finding a connection to a higher power. It could be nature for you, it could be family for you, it could be animals for you. It doesn't have to be God, but of course it could be God or religion for you as well. Social upgrade, finding your tribe, finding a group of people with habits that you want to emulate. Being around people who build you up rather than tear you down. And the psychological upgrade, reparenting yourself, as we've just talked about, as a habit, as something that you do routinely until you really feel that you have mastered your thoughts and emotions. And then it's sort of, you've done it. You've done the work. Level up. Repair attachment and trauma wounds, getting support, could be therapy, could be other types of support. So ultimately, if you do those things, and of course there's unique techniques within there where you can do meditation or pace breathing, or you can do various CBT skills to manage and sort of challenge cognitive distortions and catastrophic thinking. But these are the deeper level things that will eventually upgrade your style of thinking and allow catastrophic thinking to basically just be left in the dust. While catastrophic thinking can be a form of problem solving and protective measures, catastrophic thinking is almost always not useful. When you think about meditation masters, they're never going into catastrophic thinking, even under warlike circumstances. They're engaging in moment to moment, what's the next best behavior and action that I can do now? And they're not spending a lot of time being catastrophic. They may be planning, but they're not going to be sort of blowing things out of the water. And how you know you're able to do this is when your thinking is about planning, even under crazy circumstances, just sort of doing the next best step without letting your thoughts get into a state of fear. Essentially, how you know you're doing catastrophic thinking is there's a tinge of fear about what's about to come. And again, if we think of meditation masters or people who have really mastered themselves, and you don't have to be a meditation master to get to this place, you really, really don't. But using them as sort of a high example, they could hear a gunshot and not respond catastrophically. They would still respond in a smooth and fast manner, and to keep themselves healthy and safe, but they would not be in a state of fear and panic. Now, what type of support can you get? Well, you can get therapy, you can talk to friends and family and partners, etc., and that's all great, and I love all those things. But I have made a mentorship program available too, where we basically go through those four domains in a very sort of cyclical, sensible pattern, and we do it over the course of a year. You can see there's weekly support, monthly support, and it's fairly affordable for anybody who's interested. So if you just like an upgrade in your mental health game and you really want to get to the bottom of catastrophic thinking, well, then this mentorship program might be for you. Click the link below, check it out, see if it's a good fit. That was how to stop catastrophizing. Don't make yourself depressed and anxious. Again, I'm not trying to blame you if you're depressed or anxious, because remember, it has an origin story. It comes from somewhere. Just like I'm not blaming you if you have catastrophic thinking. That's something that you learned, and that was protective at some point in your life. So we don't need to shame it. We just then now as an adult need to look at it and go, hey, is this serving me? Is this protecting me now? Or is it actually causing me more distress? It is actually keeping me from living a quality of life that, I find to be worth living. So that's the key. It's not about shame. It's not about guilt. It's rather about, hey, is this working for me anymore or not? If the answer is not, can I get a little bit of support or mentorship to help me move through the complexities of those 4 domains? It's not simple to master biological, social, spiritual, and psychological health. Of course not. So get a little bit of support, get an already built community that can sort of support you in this journey. And you might find that those types of supports and that type of mentorship can actually upgrade your quality of life. So catastrophic thinking is no longer plaguing your mind space. On that note, y'all, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate you. I will talk to you in the next video. Take care out there. Bye-bye.